Good morning. The December 7th Board of Education meeting is now in session. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. The minutes are approved. Item 2.04, establish agenda order, and the agenda stands as published. Item 2.05 is recognitions. We have Janine Robinson to do a presentation.
Good morning. I am Janine Robinson, the Regional Assistant Superintendent for the Severna Park and Glen Burnie clusters, and I have the pleasure of introducing this morning's board recognition. Before I begin, I would like to ask members of the board and Dr. Arlotto to come forward. Thank you. Members of the board and Dr. Arlotto, we talk all of the time about our schools being focal points in our communities. Today, we are thrilled to talk about a school and community that have worked together to achieve greatness again. On Monday, Shipley's Choice Elementary School was one of 6 schools across our state named a Maryland Blue Ribbon School of Excellence. Shipley's is the 21st school in our county to earn the honor and the first to do it twice. The school was, in fact, our county's first Blue Ribbon winner way back in the 1995-96 school year, and I believe Miss Nally was the sitting principal.
No, I wasn't a principal. I was a teacher.
You were a okay, so I was wrongly informed.
And I was on the Blue Ribbon Committee, and back then it was very different, and we wrote for the
Application.
And it was hours and hours and hours, and Mary Ellen Street was our principal, and I'm just so excited about this. And Beth Burke, our teacher at Davidsonville, so, you know, I'm just excited.
Thank you. Shipley's epitomizes a community school. It is a place where incredible teachers and staff, dedicated parents, and awesome community partners have established a culture of excellence over time. Principal Beth Burke summed it up best in a letter she wrote to parents on Monday. Our kids are awesome, but they are that way because of the equally awesome parents, guardians, and community partners who support them and our school every day. Our teachers and staff are awesome as well, and their dedication to our children is second to none. That awesomeness, if I can use that word, can be seen in every classroom every day. It's been that way for years, and everyone, past and present, in the Shipley's family has a piece of this honor. The Blue Ribbon Schools program honors schools that excel or significantly improve in reading and math exams as measured by state assessments. In order to achieve Blue Ribbon status, schools must meet standards established by the Maryland and U.S. Departments of Education. Shipley's Choice has historically been among the highest performing schools in Maryland on statewide assessments. Last year, more than 89% of the school's 3rd through 5th graders scored a 4 or 5, the level designated as indicating students are on pace to be college and career ready on the Park Math Assessment, and nearly 88% hit that mark on the English Language Arts Assessment. More than 95% of students in grades 3 through 5 scored proficient or advanced on the Maryland School Assessment, the precursor to Park, in each of the final 4 years of the assessment. Shipley's is now a candidate for National Blue Ribbon Honor, and I fully expect that we will be back here next fall when those awards are announced. Principal Burke and some of her students, parents, and teachers are here today, along with former Principal Rocco Ferretti. As they come forward, please join me in congratulating them for the work they do every day.
Do you want us back up there?
Move this way.
That way, there we go.
Back up would be probably better so we can see everyone. Here, make me closer though. You guys can come. You can go over here. This way.
Mr. Spell, Ms. Spellmeyer, Mrs. Spell.
Just make sure we can see everybody's faces. Just so I can see you. You guys can just kind of look through a window there for us. Okay. All right, everybody. 3 photos and big smiles. And Miss Natalie, can you take one step? Thank you.
I told her to get closer.
Here we go, guys. So one more shot. Congratulations.
Our next item on the agenda is Educator of the Month, and I have that one. Today we recognize an educator in our school system who really understands how students learn, and he uses humor, kindness, and patience to provide excellent instruction to elementary school boys and girls. He holds high yet reasonable expectations for his students and encourages them to take risks and try new things. Patrick Alexander, instrumental music teacher at Piney Orchard Elementary School, is a master at providing specific feedback to students and always seeks to include technology, real-world connections, and school improvement strategies into his instruction. The most amazing aspect of Patrick's work is that he has developed the instrumental music program to a size that requires him to instruct full-time at school, teaching band and strings. The instrumental music program at Piney Orchard is 215 students strong. In order to provide maximum time for individual instruction and support, he has specifically arranged his schedule so that by choice he has little planning time because he'd rather spend the time with his students. His students are invited to come during recess and before school to practice and rehearse. He looks for authentic performance opportunities for his students and accompanies groups of student musicians as they participate in concerts and programs outside the school setting. More evidence of Patrick's effectiveness is that he retains a large number of those 215 student musicians from year to year. Everyone loves Mr. Alexander at Piney Orchard. He is a valued member of the school community and known by all students, not just the ones he teaches. Patrick also participates in the student mentoring program. He serves as master of ceremonies for many school events and organizes a school-wide sing-along the day before winter break. Each morning, he works with students to produce the morning announcements, and he organizes the entertainment portion of the volunteer tea each year. He understands the importance of the home school community connection and invites parents to help him with tuning instruments and helping out with winter and spring concerts. Patrick's expertise is recognized not just in school, but elsewhere, as he frequently participates in curriculum writing at the county level. He has presented at Music in Services for AACPS, and participates in adjudicating the auditions for our performing and visual arts schools. He collaborated with colleagues in his school cluster to establish an annual cluster concert for students in grades 3 to 12. Patrick Alexander, your effectiveness as a teacher and your enthusiasm overseeing your students learn and grow each day are just a few reasons for your recognition today. So on behalf of the Board of Education, the students, teachers, and staff in the Piney Orchard community, and the entire Anne Arundel County Public Schools, congratulations on being chosen as Educator of the Month for December 2016. And would you please join me up front? So Patrick and I go a long way back. We won't say how long. My students had my children had the privilege of going through Piney Orchard Elementary School. So tell us how they convinced you to come here today. What story did they give you?
I was coming for a meeting, and I have a concert tonight, and I've been like, I have to go to this meeting. I have to go to this meeting. Are you kidding me? I was like, okay, I'll go. But so this was total surprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're at a
Amazing.
meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a bell. You can join in the band at the school. For the winter concert.
Absolutely, yeah.
And a certificate.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Who else kind of slid in when I was reading?
Oh, and then comes in my mother from, and my brother from Salisbury, so that's amazing. Some friends of mine. So thank you.
And your principal's here too. We'll also do pictures after the break with everybody. Employee of the month is Ms. Sasso.
Today we recognize an employee in our school system, a man we find who works hard, wants to help others, is a positive influence on both students and staff, and always conducts himself with professionalism and dignity. Tim Williams, student advocate at South River High School, is pressed into many roles in his position. At times, Tim is the person a child needs to just talk to. The school administration utilizes Mr. Williams as the go-to guy when it involves checking something out, perhaps locating a student or even asking him what he knows about a situation. Tim seems to know more about what is going on in the school than any other employee. Mr. Williams finds the most joy in his life when he's helping others. Anything you ask of Tim, he's more willing to do. Tim is the employee who sits in the classroom of a teacher who suspects there may be a troublesome situation developing between two or more students. He's the fellow who will meet a staff member at an auto service station at 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure that staff member arrives to work on time. So there is no excuse in that school for a teacher to be late, huh? He is the one who takes on the administrative duty of welcoming the buses and faculty into the building each morning at 6:30. And he's the one who has taken on the duty of assisting the AP scholars with their student seminar by gathering books and being responsible for the class period. Tim, more than anyone else at South River, makes the school a more positive place, as each day he goes above and beyond his job of student advocate. Students in the school are extremely comfortable going to him with any problems that arise academically or personally. Teachers in the school are extremely comfortable going to Tim for assistance, as they know he'll get the job done. Not only does Tim perform his advocate position duties flawlessly, he completes out-of-school activities like monitoring school dances and running Saturday school with the administrators. Tim is a 3-season coach at South River and assists the athletic department in any way. He coaches boys soccer, girls basketball, and softball. He's a member of various athletic committees and is a major force in the Edgewater community as the result of his involvement with his church and the recreation and parks community. Tim Williams, your character is second to none as you positively influence the lives of 2,200 students at South River High. Whether it is through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, coaching sports, or merely being friendly face in the cafeteria, your presence is always felt in the school. So for these reasons and more, the Board of Education is honored to recognize you Employee of the Month for December 2016. Congratulations. Please join me up front. Okay, how did they get you here, Tim?
Well, I was already supposed to come for a scheduling meeting with softball and athletics.
Are you sure there's a meeting?
Then they told me I might have to speak about some equity thing, but I think that was just a ruse to get me in.
So I saw a great number of people coming in. So who's here for you?
Everybody, my parents, my grandparents, yeah, so everybody's here. The principal's already here, so my athletic director. Half of the school system's here. So.
And the athletic club meeting that you're going to have. You don't know?
I don't know anymore, so no idea.
Okay, well, we would like to present you with your certificate as the Employee of the Month.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and your bell with your
Thank you.
name.
Next, we have Volunteer of the Month, Ms. Williams.
An appreciative reading teacher endorsed December's Volunteer of the Month. Her contagious energy welcomes and inspires our new volunteers to enthusiastically support our students and teachers. She comes to school every day with a smile and is eager to help wherever she is needed. Today, the Board of Education is pleased to join the staff, students, and families of Marley Elementary to honor their devoted volunteer, Mrs. Amanda Jones, with the December Volunteer of the Month Award. First grade teacher Shirley Harrison knows Mrs. Jones well. Her devotion to assisting the teachers is admirable, writes Ms. Harrison. Mrs. Jones works tirelessly each day, happily completing a variety of tasks requested by teachers, some of which are very labor and time intensive. She'll even take a project home to ensure it's completed for the next day. I am so pleased that Mrs. Jones is receiving this well-deserved recognition. Principal Christy Batista agrees. Amanda is a dedicated volunteer and a strong advocate for our school. Her compassion and dedication for all students and teachers ensures they receive the support needed for success. No request is too big or too small for Amanda. You simply ask, and she makes it happen. In addition to volunteering almost every school day for the past 4 years, Amanda Jones has energetically served on Marley Elementary's PTA board, including a successful year as PTA president. As the current volunteer coordinator, Amanda efficiently recruits and inspires volunteers. She expertly trains other volunteers to use the copier and laminating machines so they, too, can aptly assist teachers and staff. Amanda Jones efficiently organizes the annual school spirit wear sale, assists with the biannual book fairs, seamlessly coordinates the vision and hearing screening events, and helps to schedule the Watchdog program and organize their fundraising events. Principal Christy Batista sums up Mrs. Jones' exceptional service by recalling author Terry, excuse me if I ruin this last name, Gulamit's words, "The world is hugged by the faithful arms of volunteers," and Miss Batista adds, "Here at Marley Elementary School, we are hugged each and every day by Miss Amanda Jones." Mrs. Amanda Jones, would you please come forward? With great appreciation, I want to present this Volunteer of the Month certificate and bell to you.
Today.
I am shaking. I'm waiting for our principal to come. I was told she was getting an award for something or to be recognized for something. So it didn't dawn on me until I just heard my name. I looked at Corey next to me and she just smiled, so I knew. And this means more to me than anything. This makes everything that I do and all the all the hours that I put in with it.
So who's here with you right now?
One of our reading teachers and two of our reading teachers, Kimby Vogt and Corey Pierce.
Well, we thank you for everything that you do, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 2.09 is school and community highlights. Ms. Hummer?
So last week, Ms. Sasso and I had the extreme pleasure of attending the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra's side-by-side concert, which included our students playing alongside the orchestra and 2,300 of our students from various schools coming to see it, and the amazing Emma Ballman, a student at Chesapeake High School, playing the piccolo. It was just an awesome event, and we're so grateful to the Baltimore Symphony to continue partnering with us to give that opportunity for all of our students. I also, last night, Mr. Alexander brought it back, I attended the winter band concert at Monarch Global Academy, and as I've said before, there's a special place in heaven for elementary beginning band and string teachers. And having one now in high school, I do know they get better, and so bless their hearts for listening to that every week. And but it was great, and the kids are very enthusiastic, and I look forward to the spring one when perhaps I'll recognize the music they play. And today, everybody in here, this is the one time we're going to tell you, pull out your phone and go to facebook.com to Fab School Labs. Bates Middle School is a finalist for the Northrop Grumman Foundation Fab School Labs contest to receive a complete science makeover, $25,000, I think it is. And we're one of the finalists, and the day is the day you can vote for Bates. So everybody pull out your phone and go to Fab School Labs on Facebook and vote for Bates Middle School, because that would be a wonderful thing for that school. And that's my last one for today.
Dr. Orlato.
Yes, thank you. There are so many wonderful things going on, but I do want to do a quick shout out to our high schools and athletics over the course of the fall. We compete so well. We've got fantastic coaches, great support from parents, our athletic directors, principals, and schools as a whole. And so we've had a really good fall. The fall athletics program wrapped up over the Thanksgiving break with our fabulous Annapolis Panthers playing in the state semifinal football game at Quince Orchard. I was able to go to the game. It was a lot of fun. Great crowd. But I do want a quick shout out to Arundel High School for winning the cheerleading championship for the state. Also, we have two other state championships. Chesapeake High School won the field hockey 3A championship, and South River High School won the 4A field hockey championship. And I was lucky enough to be at both of those games along with Bruce Lawton. We were there in the cold together at Washington College. It was a lot of fun. So congratulations to our fall sports teams.
And I'll just add that Saturday night I had the chance to go to Annapolis High School. The class of 2016 who had graduated wrote a murder mystery, and then the students who were still there got to perform it. And the students were just amazingly clever. They took the Game of Thrones theme, but they made it the Game of Phones, and everything, all of the characters had to do with an app on our phone. So King Facebook was murdered, and Lord Tinder and Lady Twitter were involved somehow. So it was a great show, but more importantly, the creativity of the students who wrote it was just fantastic. Item 2.10 is the PTA report.
Good morning, President Korbelak, Dr. Arlato, and board members. For the record, I'm Allison Pickard, President of the Anne Arundel County Council of PTAs. I would like to begin by congratulating the dedicated parents of Richard Henry Lee Elementary for making the leap and becoming our newest PTA in the county. We are excited to bring them into our PTA family. They are tenacious advocates for their school community and are already engaging more families to participate. I would also like to thank Ray Leone for taking R.H. Lee through the PTA startup process. The council has been really busy in the last month planning upcoming events. I have two save the date announcements. Our first one is our annual AACC PTA's legislative breakfast with the Anne Arundel County delegation, which will be held Thursday morning, February 2nd at 8 a.m. PTA will share our support and possibly our opposition to any pending legislation and hear updates from our state legislatures about what is happening in Annapolis. And then my second save the date is our annual Founders Day reception, which this year will be held at the BWI Marriott on Friday evening, April 21st. I promise it's going to be fun. We will honor the work of those amazing women that pulled together back in 1897 to first start advocating for children and public education. And we will also celebrate and congratulate our PTA leaders for their dedication. This year we'll be presenting 3 awards: PTA President of the Year, PTA Advocate of the Year, and PTA Volunteer of the Year. Ticket information and nomination forms will be going out after the holidays. One other event that the council is working on is a networking, brainstorming, sharing event focused on middle school PTAs and middle school parent involvement. As I've had the pleasure myself of launching into being a parent of a middle schooler and had the opportunity to be in different meetings with other middle school parents and PTA leaders, I've learned that middle school is a different beast, not just for our students. So I'm hoping to, in the spring, pull together a networking event with PTA leaders, middle school parents, and even a few middle school administrators to share some best practices, brainstorm how we can improve and increase productive parent involvement at the middle school level. And one last reminder, the council is still accepting submissions for our International Inclusion Challenge from our local school PTAs, so anybody out there listening, we look forward to learning all about the cool ways our PTAs are engaging different segments of their populations within their buildings. Thank you, and every child, one voice.
Item 2.11 is the CAC report.
Hi, good morning. I'm Melanie Teichert, Chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee. I do want to thank the board and staff before I give my report for all of the community and school highlights. I'll say that as I attend events, including an elementary strings concert last night, so I second Ms. Hummer's comments. But I'm also going to the all-county middle school this Saturday, and to see that development is just extraordinary. But every time I go to an event, I see board members and I see members of the school staff, and we really appreciate that. Those of us in the community, it means a lot that you support those events. The Citizen Advisory Committee continues to meet on the second Monday of every month here in this room, 7 to 9 p.m. We're skipping December just because December is a busy month, and we just established our subcommittees, so that'll give them a chance to get going. Our next meeting will be Monday, the 9th of January, and at that meeting we're going to have Matt Stansky come in to give us a brief on the budget, so it's very timely with the budget hearings and workshops coming up in January. So we hope to be a bridge to the community for those discussions as that budget comes out. One of our big areas of focus this year, continuing from last year's communication, and both two-way communication from the board to the community, really trying to make sure that everybody knows about the great opportunities in the school system, but also giving feedback to the board. Recently, Bob Mosier added all of the CSE committee members to his distribution list for press releases. We greatly appreciate that. Some of our committee members are not parents, and so that enables us to make sure that we're informed of what's going on. We know this year is a big year of change for the school system, with the calendar change, school start times, changes with the grading policy, including cum laude. So we're trying to do our best to help communicate that to the community and give feedback to the board as is relevant. At our last meeting, we started talking about ways to improve that communication and have talked about maybe CAC Facebook group pages by cluster, maybe some Twitter feeds, and so we'll be talking with you soon about constraints or preferences for you, but to help us communicate as those changes take place. In November, Kelly Purnell, our vice chair, gave you a brief on the subcommittees that we've established. We have 5 subcommittees that will be working on various issues this year. The first is a continuing committee on equity. This year, they're going to have a particular focus on barriers that might prevent some of our at-risk students from accessing educational opportunities in the school system. So they're going to really try to identify specific groups and specific educational opportunities and trying to make sure that any barriers that exist, we can work with the school system to eliminate or at least reduce those. We have a new committee this year looking at bus transportation. We think that's timely with the change in school start times that will be coming up, and there have been some just items identified in the community with routes and timing of buses. So we have a committee that will work with the transportation office here to make sure that that transition is smooth. We also have a new committee looking at, I'm going to generalize it, they're still formulating their ideas, but mental health and life skills. Our new committee members, we really have some extraordinarily qualified people in mental health, college and career preparation, at-risk populations, and so that core group is really looking to work with the people in the school system to identify services that exist, to make sure the community knows about them, if they're cluster-specific services, to try to identify those and disseminate them as best practices throughout the school system, and then potentially identify any gaps if they exist to work on that. And then we have continuing committees both with communication and with testing, and those committees will continue their work this year. Many of these committees have been in touch, as people in this room know, with people in the school system or will be soon for their work. We really appreciate the access that we're given. I took advantage of that last year. I think the board and the school system has provided just amazing access to key personnel to allow us to look into these issues, and we very much appreciate that. Our committees are just getting started, so as the spring gets started, we look forward to giving you further updates on our progress. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break to do pictures for the Educator, Employee, and Volunteer of the Month out in the hall. with the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes each, and the board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing the meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. This time is intended for speakers to voice their opinion and not necessarily as a question and answer period. Speakers may pose questions, but answers will be counted toward the 3-minute allotment. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. I have 2 completed cards today, Jennifer Brienza and Lisa Van Buskirk.
Good morning, Dr. Arlotto, President Korbelak, and members of the board. My name is Jennifer Brienza, and I'm here today representing the Fund Old Mill Construction Group. Our community here in Old Mill feels like a forgotten community, and that's one of the reasons I'm here today. We watched as the board worked their way through the priorities of the 2006 MGT study. Our Old Mill High School was listed as a top priority along with Northeast and Severna Park. And we watched and we waited as first Northeast got done and then Severna Park was completed. And we were patient and we sat back and figured our turn was coming at some point. And here we are 10 years later and our turn never came. Now, under the current MGT study, not only is Old Mill High School a priority one, but so are both Old Mill Middle Schools and 3 of the elementary schools in that feeder system. And yet already we're seeing our funding pushed back a year. We're only a year into the study and we're already getting pushed off further than where we need to be. As the parent of a student in the IB program at Old Mill Middle North, I can't tell you how distressing it is to see that a system that houses 3 of the county's premier magnet programs has been ignored for so long. Although we recognize that the board is following the current MGT priority list, and we acknowledge that funding has been included in the board's 6-year plan, last year's board projected a budget for fiscal year 18, which included design and feasibility study funding for Porterfield and Rippling Woods Elementary, in addition to a new Old Mill High School West. But now that we're actually discussing that fiscal year 18 budget, the funding that would follow behind it for those schools and other schools in the complex is being pushed off to fiscal year 19. Now, we've been told that obviously that's partially a result of the fiscal year 17 budget not being fully funded. But last year, the projected budget for fiscal year 18 was $36 million higher than what's being projected now for this year as we're actually discussing the budget. If you were to add back in the funding for the Old Mill Complex schools as originally planned, it only adds back in an additional $14 million, and that still leaves your budget $22 million below what was projected to be requested. Now, this project is immense, I understand. Restructuring this system is complicated, lengthy, and expensive, and believe me, I get it. It's one of those projects you just want to push off to the far corner of your desk and pretend it's not there. But there's already been money included for land acquisition. We have a master plan for this complex, and we're not asking to be pushed ahead of anyone else. We just want what we've been waiting for. This community has been patient for decades for its turn, and I ask the board, please do not mistake our patience for complacency. We've waited long enough, and our time for this funding is now. Please restore our Old Mill School Complex funding back into the fiscal year 18 budget.
Good morning, Dr. Arlotto and Board of Education. For the record, Lisa Van Buskirk will start school later. Last month, I testified about early start times, teen sleep, and teen drowsy driving in connection with Drowsy Driving Week and having just spoken at Fort Meade's SAD chapter. I would have taken this meeting off, but yesterday a report was released by the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, which places the drowsy driving issue back in the media spotlight. The report says that the drivers who sleep only 5 or 6 hours in a 24-hour period are twice as likely to crash as drivers who get 7 hours of sleep or more. And the less sleep the person gets behind the wheel, the higher the crash rate. Drivers in the study who got 4 or 5 hours of shut-eye had 4 times the crash rate. With less than 7 hours of sleep, they act like drunk drivers. We wouldn't let students come to school drunk, but we let them learn in a similar kind of mental state. And these numbers are based on adult sleep needs of 7 to 8 hours and not teen sleep needs of 8.5 to 10. So we place our teens more at drowsy driving risk if they only get 7, 6, or 5 hours of sleep, which is what 78% of Anne Arundel's teens get. As Jack Nelson in the AAA Director for Traffic Safety Advocacy and Research said, teenagers, older adults, and people who have a sleep debt are among the highest risk groups. 1 in 5 crashes where somebody dies is that crash involves a driver who's drowsy or hadn't had enough sleep the night before. We should also be mindful of the sleep patterns of our bus drivers and the parents who transport our students so that their lack of sleep doesn't further put our students at risk. The parents of a teen who achieved just 4 to 5 hours of sleep at night and whose school started at 7:35 in the morning in Missouri was killed 6 years ago in the middle of the afternoon from a drowsy driving. The family was interviewed by CBS. The mother said, I knew about texting and driving, distracted driving, joyriding, cell phones, paired driving, drunk driving. All those things we're educated about, but not once was there a conversation about young adults, and drowsy driving. Nor was there likely a conversation about the role of start times on sleep patterns, like we've had here in this room. So it was with high expectations that Start School Later looks forward to Dr. Arlotto's fiscal year 2018 budget announcement in 2 weeks. High expectations that healthier and safer start times for all Anne Arundel students will be put forth as a #1 priority and not something to be funded after everything else on Dr. Arlotto's Christmas wish list. High expectations that Dr. Arlotto will explain to the community why this is his #1 priority and not just a response to squeaky wheels, but that his proposals in response to very serious public health and safety issues that just happen to be governed by education policies. Part of that explanation should reference yesterday's report on drowsy driving. High expectations that Dr. Arlotto's proposal for healthy and safe school hours will address the community's concerns identified last winter. High expectations that Dr. Arlotto and his staff will use the transportation software for the purpose for which it was purchased, which was refining school hours, as discussed by this board in February 2015 and summarized in an email by Teresa Sutherland to you 2 weeks ago. Thank you, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. I don't have any additional cards. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the board at this time? Okay, we'll move on to action items. Oh, Mr. Granum.
Have I still not learned how to do that? My gosh. I'm running out of excuses. My comment briefly is about the proposed adoption of Latin honors presented at the last board meeting. I wholeheartedly support the initiative to recognize the hard work and accomplishments of a broader swath of our high-achieving students by adopting the traditional 3-tiered Latin honor system. I'm not yet convinced, however, that adopting the Latin honor system means we should abandon the traditional distinctions of valedictorian and salutatorian. At our last meeting, during the staff's presentation on the proposal, I asked whether other school systems had maintained the traditional valedictorian and salutatorian distinctions along with the 3 Latin honor designations, and the staff said they didn't think so. Wasn't trying to put them on the spot, I just wanted to know. In any event, afterward, I did a very quick check and found what appears to be at least one system that did what I'd asked about. Durham, North Carolina, a large school system, just this year adopted Latin honors but decided to keep the traditional distinctions of valedictorian and salutatorian after consideration by a task force. Before we do away with the long-held tradition of naming a valedictorian and salutatorian, consider what that would mean for our graduates, particularly as they embark on academic and professional careers that may take them beyond our county. There is a long tradition in America of naming valedictorians and salutatorians, and those distinctions remain with those honorees throughout their careers in every walk of life. Notable high school valedictorians include Alicia Keys, Cindy Crawford, Jodie Foster, Weird Al Yankovic, W.E.B. Du Bois, Dr. Seuss, Paul Robeson, and Kevin Spacey. Notable high school salutatorians include Albert Einstein, Carrie Underwood, Michelle Obama, Jimmy Carter, John F. Kennedy, John Wayne, and Connie Francis. Under the system as proposed, class rank would remain discernible to the students and colleges, so it's not apparent that dropping the traditional valedictorian and salutatorian distinctions would necessarily reduce competition to achieve the #1 ranking. What is clear, though, is that dropping the traditional valedictorian and salutatorian distinctions will each year deprive 26 of our hardworking graduates of a distinction they would otherwise carry for the rest of their lives. If we make a comparison to the world of sports, for example, in team sports like football and baseball, there's a long tradition of naming an MVP, which recognizes that player's contribution without taking away anything from the other teammates. Adopting the broader Latin honors will unquestionably and appropriately provide broader recognition to high achievers, but we could adopt Latin honors while maintaining the traditional valedictorian and salutatorian distinctions. I intend to keep an open mind throughout the public comment period, but my present intention is to support adopting Latin honors while preserving the ability of any future Alicia Keyses or Albert Einsteins who come from our county to maintain those well-deserved distinctions for their future academic and professional careers. Thank you.
All right, administrative personnel appointments, item 4.01, we do not have any. Item 4.02, personnel appointments. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend to the board approval of the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
So moved.
All those in favor? Motion passes 900. Next, we have 2 policy revisions up for second reading. These are information items only. Item 4.03, Graduation Activities Code IID. And we don't have any presentation, but I noticed we have no public comments.
Good morning. For the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. We do not have any public comments for this one. Yes, correct.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any board questions or comments for the second reading? Ms. Sasso.
I don't have any comments. I just want to tell the public that we welcome Jeanette Ortiz, and it's really, really nice to see that basically we are getting other Hispanics in here.
Thank you.
And any public comment on this item? Okay, so this will come back next time, December 21st.
Yes, correct.
All right. And item 4.04, also an information item, graduation requirements, IIC second reading. Ms. Sasso.
I would like to agree with the presentation that Eric Gannon just made, which is basically retaining the valedictorian and salutatorian besides the Latin honors.
That's a different policy.
Oh, sorry.
The graduation requirements policy is not talking about ValSal.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you anyway.
I see there was one public comment.
Good morning. Again, for the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. Yes, there was one public comment, and it was a request for financial literacy to be a required course for high school graduation. Currently within our curriculum, financial literacy components are already interwoven at all levels, elementary, middle, and high school.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, so we'll see both of those on the 21st.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is an information item as well. Item 4.05, the superintendent's recommendation on redistricting Broadneck and Cape St. Clair elementary schools. Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
And this is being brought to you this morning as an information item only. It's item 4.05 regarding the superintendent's recommendation on redistricting with respect to Broadneck and Cape St. Clair elementary schools. In accordance with board policy and administrative reg JAA, the superintendent is required to submit to the board no later than the first Board of Education meeting in the month of December his recommendation for redistricting. The board then, pursuant to the aforementioned policies, will review the superintendent's recommendation along with any other recommendations brought forward by the board and determine no later than the end of January which to take to both public briefing and public hearing. In order for any redistricting to go forward in the subsequent year, the board must take final action no later than April 30th, and that's under state law. The superintendent of schools, as is customary and again spoken to within the regulation, formulated a redistricting committee to provide him recommendations on options to alleviate, to the extent possible, the overcrowded condition at our Broadneck Elementary School facility. There is an attached exhibit that is the report prepared by the redistricting committee. We'll go through that momentarily. The committee voted for option A, which essentially is an option that does not redistrict any youngsters between Broadneck Elementary School and Cape St. Clair, so we'll maintain the status quo. The superintendent's recommendation is that of option B for school year 2017-2008. This option would redistrict approximately 69 students currently living in the communities of College Parkway Place, Deep Creek Village, and Quaker Ridge from Broadneck Elementary School to Cape St. Clair Elementary School. The rising fourth graders, the ones who will be fifth graders next year, would be allowed to avail themselves of a grandfathering option, and the parents and guardians of those students would elect whether to remain at their current school or transition over to the new facility over at Cape St. Clair. So the packet that you have before you, and again, this is for information today only for your consideration, the first few pages depict the maps and diagrams with respect to the current situation as it exists, and that is the committee's recommendation. So absent any change in boundaries or redistricting activities, the catchment areas for both schools will remain as is. And again, we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. The next page contains the boundaries of the proposed redistricting elements as proposed by the superintendent. And the reason I breeze through that really quickly is I really want to focus on the committee's report. This effort wouldn't have been possible without the hard work and dedication of the four committee members. Its chair, Ms. Judge, recording secretary, Ms. Mahoney, Ms. Chandler, and Mr. Gillette, the four members. This is honestly one of the best reports I've seen. It's extremely thorough. The graphics, the mathematics behind it are very thorough, and it's much to testament of the hard work of those fine individuals and the many hours they dedicated to this task and the public hearings, et cetera, that formulated and informed the work. So if I can draw your attention then to page 2 and then specifically page 3, this essentially outlines the committee's recommendation, and this is actually calling from the redistricting committee's report. At the bottom of page 3, you'll see a chart that shows what the current and projected enrollments are for both Broadneck Elementary and Cape St. Clair, and the state-rated capacities of both schools as well. So you'll see that Broadneck Elementary School has a capacity in the current year of 717. It has a enrollment of 827, and it results in 115.3% utilization rate. I'm simply trying to bring to your attention how the chart is structured. Cape St. Clair Elementary School in the current year has 800, room for 800 students in terms of that prescriptive state-rated capacity algorithm. It has 592 students attending the school, providing a 74% utilization rate of that building. Taking the recommendation of the committee and making no adjustments to the boundaries will result, if you take a look at the projected years, you go out to the far right-hand column, you'll see that the total enrollment for both schools, Broadneck and Cape St. Clair's, do in fact decline marginally in the out years, such that by the time we get to 2022, Broadneck Elementary School will have dropped to approximately 108.6% of its state-rated capacity, so it's overutilized, oversubscribed, and Cape St. Clair would have dropped to only 71.8% of its capacity. So again, we will continue in an overcapacity condition at Broadneck. We'll continue in an underutilized condition. The committee did a wonderful job explaining their rationale. Again, I'll leave that to your own reading between now and the time we meet again to weigh your options as well as the superintendent's options. Given the unanimous vote of the committee to go for option A, which again is maintaining the status quo, the committee formulated essentially three ancillary or three other options for the board and for the superintendent first and foremost, and then the board to consider. So they are option B, C, and D. We'll take them a little bit out of order. So in option C would move approximately 96 students. The map depicting the geographic attendance zone of those students is shown on page 6. And it would bring the current capacity, if that was to transpire, would bring the current utilization rate, of Broadneck from 115 down to, and under option C, down to 102 immediately. And it would bring up the utilization of Cape St. Clair from approximately 74 to approximately 86. This was voted on by the committee, and the results of that vote were 2 for and 2 opposed. And again, I'll leave to your reading the rationale, the pros and cons, and the rationale for their vote. Option D, which is shown on a graphic on a map on page 8, option D would result in the movement of approximately 90 students. The result of that would be to lower Broadneck's utilization from 115% short term down to, again, approximately 102.8 students. It would increase Cape St. Clair's capacity from its current 74% up to about 85.3. So the rationale is contained in the text contained on page 9. This was voted on by the committee again, and it was a split vote again, so a 2-2 tie for option D. One important note on both option C and option D is that it would necessitate the reallocation of 2 buses, so 2 bus routes, 2 buses would essentially be impacted, but they would simply be transferred and repurposed from transporting today Broadneck Elementary students to the Cape St. Clair. So we would not be adding buses. We would simply be repurposing 2 of the buses that service those 2 schools. As I indicated earlier, the superintendent elected to recommend option D. Option B, which is shown on page 10 of your packet with the narrative supporting that on page 11. Option B would result in a redistricting of approximately 69 students. It would bring the utilization of Broadneck Elementary School short-term down from 115.3% down to 105.6%. It would increase short-term the utilization of Cape St. Clair from today's 74% up to 82.8%. Only one bus in this case would be impacted, so we would be repurposing a current Broadneck Elementary bus over to service Cape St. Clair. This option was put forward as a viable option by the committee, but it was not supported by the committee, so it received no votes. The votes were split amongst option C and option D. I think the most telling page, and the one that really the committee, I think, did the best job on, is located on your print page number 19. Because all the figures I've referenced to date really talk about the near-term effect, and it's important to take into account the long-term effect of the redistricting. So on page 19, you'll see, and we'll go through it in order again, option A, the school today is at 115.3%. And immediately below it, you'll see in the following years, it actually ticks up just slightly to 115.6, and then Broadneck will slowly tick down to 115.1, 112.3, and 108.6, again remaining over capacity. Cape St. Clair, as I indicated earlier, will also continue to tick down slowly from 74.4, 73.6, 72.6, 71.8. The superintendent's recommendation B will bring Broadneck's elementary school capacity from that initial rate that I referenced earlier over time down to 99% at the end of that 2020 period. So it'll tick down slowly, and it'll be just under capacity. Broadneck Elementary School, again, would remain essentially level because the students that are going to be redistricted there are somewhat offset by the slowly declining enrollment. Option C and option D, because they would move approximately 96 or 90 students respectively instead of 69 students as is contained in the superintendent's recommendation, would make that transition more aggressive, and by that I simply mean that Broadneck Elementary School would come under its state rated capacity, so it would meet 100% or lower on a more aggressive basis. In that case, in both cases with option C and D, Broadneck would go under 100% in the 2019 school year instead of the 2020 school year. And you'll see in all scenarios the Cape St. Clair School remains above its current utilization, but rather safely below its capacity figure. With that, I believe we'll conclude our presentation short term, other than again to reinforce the fact that there's a lot of information contained here. Today is simply just a delivery and the initial presentation. You'll have ample time to relook at this information. Your options include essentially adopting and moving forward to the superintendent's recommendation, modifying the superintendent's recommendation, rejecting the superintendent's recommendation in its entirety, or crafting your own series of recommendations that you wish to bring forward to a public hearing. So we will be coming back before this body shortly once you've had a time to digest this, once you've had a chance to hear some input, I'm sure, from affected constituents, and then you'll be in an informed position to decide which elements you want to bring forward to a public briefing and then to a public hearing before you're then yet again placed in a position to have to take a formal vote by the end of April. So this is a rather lengthy process. Thank you.
Mrs. Birch.
Thank you. I have a question. I know it's been almost a week since I first read this, so I may not have all of my thoughts properly there. But one of the concerns of the Broadneck community was that bringing their population under 100% would then open their school up for their area up for new development and then more growth again. Am I characterizing that correctly?
So that is spoken to in the report, and I'll answer that in an indirect fashion.
Okay.
Heretofore, it has not been the policy or practice of this Board of Education to control growth and development. That's a function of the county government, the county council, and the planning and zoning department.
Right.
Certainly, they rely on some of the data that the Board of Education utilizes with respect to the adequate public facility ordinance, just like they rely on transportation data, et cetera, from other elements of county government. But we historically, as a Board of Ed, have neither taken nor not taken redistricting actions based on whether they do or do not impact growth and development activity within the county. We've essentially, we're outside of that process that occurs over at Arundel Center historically.
I guess it struck me as an interesting motivation to not want your school to be redistricted. I'd never heard of something like that before. It did not struck me as an option. But So explain it to me. I know that we use 90% of state rated capacity in terms of out of area transfers, but when the county looks at whether or not a school zone is open for development, do they look at the 100% mark?
Yes, ma'am. It's 100% of state rated capacity is what's contained in the current adequate public facility law in Anne Arundel County.
And the drawback of the way the law is currently drafted is that if they are under 100%, then it doesn't matter how big the development is, it can be approved.
Correct. It's a binary process, so it's either open or closed. It's either fully open or fully closed. This county does not use an allocation method, so that if it was open, but only open, for example, for 5 students, you can only have a certain number of housing stock. It is either fully open or fully closed in a binary fashion. And again, that is prescribed under county law as it exists today.
Okay. I wanted to just understand that a little bit better as I'm thinking through all of this. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. Just have 2 questions, or 2 question areas, if I may. The first, if we can start on pages 10 and 11, looking at the superintendent's recommendation of option B. My first question is just looking at those communities noted in red, and I see Bellevue Road, Bellevue Drive, Bellerive, sorry. You know, I think I need glasses now, but this is some small print. Those communities that are in option B that would be routed to Cape St. Clair Elementary under that proposal, I see, you know, the mileage indicated there, but given College Parkway, busy rush hour in the morning, busy rush hour in the afternoon, evening, do you know the implication of timing that students would be on the bus? Is that marginal, or is that going to be substantial?
It's essentially marginal. If you take a look at it, one of the things that transportation always strives for is what's called same-side service. Some folks call it right-hand service. And that is because the door of the bus essentially is on the forward right-hand side of the chassis. So to the extent possible, we prefer to not have youngsters crossing a road. So the configuration in this case would allow a bus to make the loop. The loop connects at College Parkway in 2 locations. To make the loop, continue to pick up students on the right-hand side of the road, and then reconnect College Parkway at a safe location where it can make that left. We do not. Buses are large vehicles, and in tight quarters with, unfortunately, blind spots in them. So we try not to make 3-point turns. So we would not want to have that bus go to the end of its service area, Mr. Gillen, make a 3-point turn, and then come back out the way that it entered. The more safe option is to allow that bus to continue along that arc and then reconnect College Parkway just west of the catchment area there.
But I do want to note there is a light at the east end, but there is not a light at the west end. So that may be a consideration for transportation.
Right.
And forgive me, I should know this, but is College Parkway state or county?
I believe it's county. Okay. I
believe. My second question then, if we shift to page 3 where we've got the chart, and I know we've got, you know, some stronger numbers at the end of the report as well. I'm just curious because I'm looking at the occupancy percentage line for Broadneck Elementary as it currently stands, and it looks like it's trending down significantly. Where we're, just for lack of data at this point, where we're somewhat handicapped is we can't see beyond 2020. So I don't know if 2021, 2022, if that trend downward is going to continue, and if so, are we getting back to what our eventual goal would be at the start of the 2017-18 year? In essence, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Sure. So our projections for Broadneck Elementary School, because that's specifically the one you asked for, has a state rated capacity of 717. Our official education facility master plan that this board votes on every June and is reviewed and adopted by both the county government and the state government, and has since been approved by both of those external entities. It shows that by year 2025, Mr. Gillen, Broadneck Elementary School would have 750 students at it. So I understand that the chart you're looking at only shows out to 19 and 20, but our official projections that both the county and state have also adopted shows in the year 2025 Broadneck Elementary School being at 750, which is still in excess of its 17. So it will remain over capacity at least 5 years past the numbers contained within the committee's report.
Would it be possible, I hate to ask for more detail and more legwork on this, but just to see that comparison of what it is right now as it's districted right now, and then what the superintendent's proposal would be out to 2025.
Sure, very easy to do.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Nally.
A couple of questions. Now, when you, on option B, I'm looking at the map, and you say, excuse me, what's that? Oh, page 11. When you say one of the concerns is that it would, let me see, it would creates an awkward layout between neighborhoods. And as I'm looking at the map, does that mean that blue, just that little blue road, Bellerive, that section would continue to go to Broadneck, and the whole rest of that community would be transferred to Cape? Is that the way I'm reading it right?
No, so just to orient you to the graphic, you see the numbers. There's some sort of dark blue numbers there.
Yes.
604, 605, and 606.
Correct.
Those three areas currently today go to Broadneck Elementary School.
Okay.
Under the superintendent's recommendation, that sort of salmon-colored area north of the loop road there, 604, 605, and 606, would be redistricted to Cape St. Clair. So there would be a contiguous boundary. The boundaries of Cape St. Clair then would remain intact. There wouldn't be a gap or a donut hole, as some people call it, there. So it would maintain a contiguous. So it's the parts of the road, again, outside of the loop there that are depicted in 604, 605, and 606. Out of the section 604 that's on your page 10, 22 students reside in that area. In section 605, there's 30 students, and in section 606, there's 17 students. Adding those up together are the 69 students that I referenced earlier.
So that Bellerive Drive, that in 604, that's the boundary. Those students from those, what about 602, 600, 601, 602, 603? Those would continue to go to Broadneck.
Correct. They currently go to Broadneck, and they would continue to all go
along
to
with that blue Bellerive, that one section, they would be Broadneck. Am I looking at the right or?
Correct.
I
South.
understand, but there's a Bellerive Drive group that wouldn't.
Right. So that road bifurcates the community. So if you're inside of the loop, the southern
I've
side
got
of the
you.
page,
Okay.
you would continue to go to Broadneck as you do today. If you're outside of the loop in section 604, 605, and 606, you would be redistricted to Cape St. Clair.
Okay. Another question, just out of interest.
I'm sorry, is that one subdivision? 604?
No, there. Inside the loop is Southern Hills Drive, is Dorado Hills. It's a condo
Hills
units on that
and
side, but they're not the
Dorado
same.
Hills.
They're not the same communities.
And outside, yeah, see, here's Southern Hills. And this is another.
Got it.
Okay. Another question. Now, we talked about out-of-area transfers, and they're not, from what I gather, a significant number of out-of-area transfers currently at Broadneck Elementary. And I heard the number 10. Is that accurate?
Yes.
It's going to be a low number because, as Ms. Burge indicated earlier, the school is over capacity, so their ability
so
to
there
accept
won't be.
out-of-area transfers as a former principal, you recall it's pretty constrained, so it's going to be a relatively low number.
Now, I should know this, but I don't, or I don't remember. Where are the pre-K opportunities on the Broadneck Peninsula? Where do we have pre-K on Broadneck?
I believe it's at Belvedere.
Belvedere. Now, is that an adequate number of pre-K opportunities for that large peninsula for these students, or is there an interest at all in expanding pre-K?
Well,
I mean, I know
I will begin this, and the superintendent's going to bring this up, but I think you've heard from the superintendent that he's keenly interested in aggressively expanding pre-K opportunities across the county. So the direct answer to you is no, it's underserved in terms of pre-K. We're sort of constrained at the moment, as you know, by some of the funding issues, so we've not been able to as aggressively expand pre-K opportunities as we wish, but that is absolutely the direction, and I'm sure Dr. Lotto could expand upon that.
Absolutely, and Alex is correct. We're going to continue to look at that, and we're, at this stage, because of funding, we're going to try and do it strategically about where we can build it, where the greatest need is now, and eventually we'd like to get to the Broadneck Peninsula. We'd like to add seats. We also have to look at where we can add seats, where this space is available.
Well, that's why I'm looking at Cape St. Clair. I'm just saying, where are the if we need pre-K, and I liked Terry's remark, because there, what's that you said, Terry, squeeze the lemon. What was that thing you said? Yes, is the juice worth the squeeze for moving? But then again, pre-K, to me, we're looking at Cape St. Clair, and it's obviously under capacity. Would that be an opportunity to expand pre-K? And I don't know, it's just a thought I'm throwing out there, because I'm looking at this and it doesn't look like option B is, I don't know, I'm not convinced.
So let me try to address that, Ms.
saying.
Nally. So we currently essentially, as you know, under the federal algorithm, we receive support for Tier 1 and Tier 2 students. So we fully are essentially compliant with our obligation to provide pre-K opportunities for those youngsters. The remaining students are essentially Tier 3 students, and we received no county, no local funding directly to support those. So that's the fiscal constraints I indicated. But if you go, I think to answer your question directly, the exhibit's actually up on the wall there, but on page 19, I'll give you a second to catch up with me there.
Yeah, that's where I have my notes.
Sure. So in almost all cases, Ms. Nally, Cape St. Clair is rated for 800 students. In option B, the superintendent's recommendation, it would have 661 students at it, still leaving about 140 empty seats. In the other two options, the building's still rated for 800. It would have about 680 children in it under option C and D, meaning there's still 120 essentially opportunities for empty seats. So all three of those activities, whether the board decided B, C, or D, there would be somewhere between 120 and 140 plus empty seats still remaining at Cape St. Clair. And superintendent says we're approaching this strategically. So having the opportunity, if you have 120 or 140 empty seats, that creates the opportunity. Once we solve some of the fiscal limitations, staffing limitations, Cape St. Clair would absolutely look like a wonderful place to put a pre-K program.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Sasso.
I just have a question, because literally we're transferring students, and at the same time, Broadneck is still overcrowded. So one question is, looking at page 10, 600, 601, 602, and 603, how many students per each one of those blocks are there?
So looking on page 10, if you look up into the right-hand portion, you'll see in 600 there's 11, in 601 there's 5, in 602 there's 19, in 603 there's 22.
Okay, why can't we take all of that community rather than divide them and basically send those 22 plus the 69, because you have the bus basically right in that area. And if you look at the housing distribution, it is pretty much a community by itself divided by Belle Reve. Why can't we take all of those 22 and 69 and that whole community, basically transport them to Cape St. Clair, keep the community together, and bring down the numbers for Brutnick?
So if you look at your exhibit on page 6, which is option C, the graphic there, does that align with what you're suggesting?
Both sections.
Or all?
I'm saying 601 to...
Oh. Well, again, as I said earlier, the board,
606.
right, the board certainly can create their own option as well, and so you could create a more aggressive option that would combine, you know, those areas into the other recommendations as well. I mean, if
the 69. So that would bring down the 105% that it gets to in 2020. You know, because we're sort of like doing it half-assed. You know, we're just bringing it down a little bit at a time, dividing a community. You know, why can't we do the whole community?
right, again, as indicated, the board
and this is not serving the needs of our children. This is causing undue emotional distress. It's putting them in a potentially dangerous bus situation, and it's just, in my opinion, cruel to pull our children out of an environment that they are used to possibly have new children put into that environment. And please remember, these are children, not a number on a spreadsheet. Thank you.
Dr. Arlotto, President Korbelak, and members of the board. My name is Megan Davis, and I live in the Deep Creek Village community. I have a 3rd grader and a 5th grader at Broad Elementary and an upcoming kindergartner. We moved to this community 3 years ago specifically so that my children did not have to switch schools because I didn't think that they would be able to handle it. And I'm going to try not to repeat some of Lauren's statements. I'd like to start out with the fact that not one parent showed up at any of the meetings that was in support of redistricting. And I've never really heard anyone complain that the school is too big. I'm going to go into the portables. We have 3 portables at the school, 2 5th grade classes, and band and strings. I believe they got the first portables in around 2014. There are other schools in the county like Edgewater that have many more portables and have had them for years. And I do have to say that my 5th grader is in a portable classroom and she absolutely loves it. They love it out there. I'd rather have my child in a portable than start a new school year in the 4th grade, which brings me to my daughter. Sorry, Darcy. And she's the main reason that I'm here. Okay, it took 2.5 years for me to get her to be confident in attending school. Many thanks to the teachers at Broadneck for bringing that out in her. And I just fear a move will destroy her confidence and love for attending school. So she's made so much progress in the last couple of years, and I just really see her blossoming at the school. So just make an easy decision and do not redistrict. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Arlotto and board members. I'll try not to repeat too much of what was said, but because I'm nervous, I wrote some stuff down, so I probably will. I'll get over the emotional stuff in a second. My daughter is in 1st grade, and she's also very shy. And
could you tell us your name? I'm sorry.
Her name, my daughter, I'm sorry. My name is Kim Finazzo, Deep Creek Village as well. My daughter's in 1st grade, and last year she probably didn't speak to anybody till about November or December. The teachers at Broadneck were absolutely wonderful. By this year, she's just starting to build some confidence with not only the kids and the teachers at school, but the kids in the neighborhood as well. She'll actually go outside and play with the kids outside, and that is all due to Broadneck Elementary, and my fear is that I will start all over with this process if she has to start another school in 2nd grade. With that said, please note that I attended every meeting regarding this matter from start to finish, so I was present for every public discussion along with the challenges presented to the panel with this effort. I plan to focus on numbers and percentages to demonstrate there's little to no gain or relief to Broadneck with this redistricting effort. The original intent of the effort was 75 to 100 kids. As we've already discussed, the 69 would fall short of that goal. We do not want Broadneck to become an open school. Whether you move 69, 75 to 100 kids, you have now just opened Broadneck for business. If there's land, developers will find it. As we speak, there are homes being built at the end of Shore Acres. So those kids get to move into the school as our kids have to move out. Now, school projections are for every 10 homes, they project 2 students. It's just a projection. Those 10 or 11 houses being built at the end of Shore Acres, for all we know, every one of those homes could have 2 children in it. That could be 20 kids, while 69 kids need to move out. In addition, there are illegal residents that go to Broadneck Elementary. These are students whose parents decided that they were going to use a different address to send their kids to the school. We asked during the meetings how this could be handled. The panel said it was unprecedented to ask for everyone at the school to verify their address, and there is not the time and resources to do so. My kid has to go to another school while potentially an illegal resident has to stay. Re-verify the addresses at this school before you propose a redistricting effort. Please keep our schools closed. As you noticed with option A, It's going to go down 7% over the next 4 years. With option B, by 2020, you're open for business. You're at 99%. You've done nothing. I just want to move to some other statistics really quickly while I see the light has come on. The bus, my neighborhood is approximately 2.8 miles from Broadneck. The only safe bus route for option B is to go through Bay Hills to get to Baydale to make the safe left. My neighborhood is approximately 1.9 miles from the Baydale light. At that point, we're more than halfway to Broadneck Elementary as you're taking our kids through the neighborhoods where all of their friends go to school. We all know we're overcrowded in Anne Arundel County, but just a few publicly accessible census statistics. From 2010 to 2015, the county growth was 4.9%. The Anne Arundel County projections, in 2020, were at 556,100. 2030 projected to be 572,000. We're not getting any smaller, we're getting any bigger. I realize I'm out of time, but I have similar projections for the Arnold and the Cape population. We are in a very small, condensed area with the density, and you put us down at 99%. You're open for business. Please keep us slightly over 100%, and don't sacrifice our students just for more developers to come in and allow more kids to move. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julie Locascio, and I live in Deep Creek Village as well. And I strongly oppose the recommendation for redistricting.
Can I pause you for a second? I
Yes.
still have Craig Davis, Vadim, and Chris Burrows on my list. Are you guys not
my
speaking? Okay.
Good morning still, right? My name is Chris Burrows. I live in Deep Creek Village as well. I've been in education for 15 years. I started as a teacher. I'm an administrator now in Prince George's County. Where should I start? Everybody's hit on a lot of the topics. From an administrator's point of view, from an educator's point of view, I worry about all of our children and their social and emotional development being shifted from a school where they have all their friends, where they've built relationships with teachers. My second grade daughter still goes to see her kindergarten teacher, her first grade teacher on a daily basis. They've built that community. We're going to be taking that community apart just to meet a spreadsheet number. And like we said, to open up the school to new development, to new students, the problem is going to stay there. As long as that school only services 717 students, it's going to be overcrowded. Whether we're there or another community gets built, it's going to stay overcrowded. Please vote to not redistrict anyone. Thank you.
All right, no Craig Davis or Vadim? Okay.
Good morning, Madam President, Superintendent, members of the board. My name is Vadim Olashevsky, and my family and I are now residents at Deep Creek Village community. We have been residents of the state of Maryland for a long time and have recently made a decision to move to Anne Arundel County. Our top consideration in selecting a home was the community we will be part of and the school that will become second home to our children. Our youngest daughter started school the year our home was built, which was 2014, and the year we moved our family in. Our goal was to settle in and provide our children an opportunity to grow and develop. We realized that not all children develop socially the same, and we believe our child is not alone when it comes to the time she needs to learn about others before establishing relationships. We grew patience and we saw results when the community reached out our children and opened trust to make friends, spend time together, and enjoy learning. This has not happened overnight and took a few years. This past year, our second child entered the same school, and we truly started to feel as part of the larger Broadneck family. On most days of the week, our children continue to stay together with other children from school, when they play on the playgrounds, in the parks, attend classes after school, and learn to compete in sports. We feel our school and our children also help us as adults to find more time in our busy lives to be a bigger part of our community. It's been a complete surprise and a great distress to us as our family find out that only 2 short years later, we are facing a separation from our community and our school. We had all confidence in state and local government agencies tasked with projecting data, zoning, and planning to properly make decisions that affect lives of future fellow county residents and future of the county, its young children. We feel that this change, if approved, will put strains in our trust in those who serve our county and in trust of our children in us as parents in our ability to find homes and provide stability in their lives. We ask you please consider that our family and many other members of our community diligently took the time away from our children and participated in all committee proceedings to share very important information about transportation, parking, safety, diversity, enrollment projections, and feedback from school administration. We ask you please consider committee's main recommendation and other options if necessary. We hope you will find fair resolution to this matter and will put children before forecasts and perfect maps in your decisions. Thank you very much for your attention and assistance in advance.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Davis, and I apologize for not coming up sooner. I actually am a teacher at Broadneck Elementary, and I really wanted to hear what the parents had to say, because I have not had a chance to be present at a lot of the other meetings. And similar to my colleague we saw earlier, side note, Patrick Alexander, I have to leave and go prepare for my wife's music concert. So apologize for looking a little brushed. I had something I wanted to say, but now I'm not sure what I wanted to say because I'm hearing all this new information. I know the fact that we have a great school at Broadneck, and above all else, I advocate for those kids. And the notion of separating some of these families has bothered me to an extent. Now, I don't have a horse in this race because I'm just a teacher there, but we have a lot of great families and great support. I'm curious if there is another option in the future instead of doing this now, rather than finding something, as Mr. Grandin said, not only grandfathering some students in with siblings or finding a way to redistrict upcoming students so it's not a huge shift. Now, would that be totally feasible? I'm not sure. I just know that the numbers themselves do support what you're saying about Cape St. Clair. To the extent we do it, I do not know either. So if I'm sounding neutral, it's because I am. But I know the fact that our school is fantastic, and these people are here to vouch for them, so I will vouch for them as well, because I teach, I can say, almost multiple of their children in here, but I think it's worthwhile to hear what they have to say, not so much as what the numbers dictate. And numbers are important as far as going through and really facilitating what will change. So honestly, I might have had one way or another, but I'm not sure how I exactly feel. I think the important thing for everyone on the board, Dr. Arlotto, and all of you consider is that they are families. These are more than just numbers. These are people. But also think about the livelihood of everyone. So I apologize if I'm spouting off nonsense at this point, but frankly, I just want to come as clear conscious to hear what everyone had to say, and I appreciate your time, presence, and above all else, that Broadneck is a great community, great people. I know Cape St. Clair is a great school too, but I hope in your interest you listen to what all these fine people have to say and in good terms come to a decision that will be equitable and fair for everyone. Thank you.
All right, the next six I have is Julie Locasio, Jen Denny, Benjamin Frazier, Jody Pratt, Melissa Christian, and Ashley Shadler.
Hi, again. My name is Julia Locasio, and I live in Deep Creek Village, and I strongly oppose the recommendation for redistricting. I attended every committee meeting on this issue and support how the committee, parents from both schools, and the principals from both schools feel. There's no real problem to solve here. On the contrary, moving forward with the redistricting causes additional problems and concerns. As the committee stated in their proposal, there are no parental or administrator complaints about overcrowding or the use of portable classrooms at Broadneck Elementary. There is no evidence to illustrate that current students are being impacted negatively by the use of portable classrooms, and test scores for students at Broadneck do not suggest that the number of students at the school has in any way negatively impacted the level of education that students have received. Moreover, as the projected numbers suggest, enrollment numbers at Broadneck will decrease over the course of the next 4 years, thereby self-correcting any real overcrowding issue. Lowering Broadneck's capacity now simply opens it up for future residential development to occur, thereby compounding and recreating this short-term course of action seeks to alleviate. Chief among my concerns, however, is the safety and well-being of our children. In order to transport our children to Cape St. Clair, a longer, more inconvenient bus route must be adopted, one that the Department of Transportation said is feasible but believes is less ideal. The route is through residential neighborhoods, a busy shopping center intersection, and on narrow, windy streets that are particularly hazardous in inclement weather and are predominantly used by current Cape students who walk to school. The route will also consist of traveling a further distance down College Parkway, a 50-mile-per-hour two-lane road, where in the last 3 months alone there have been 2 major accidents requiring passengers to be medevaced from the scene. Furthermore, redistricting students from Broadneck to Cape creates a transportation strain on Cape St. Clair Elementary School. Since Cape St. Clair is considered a walking school, there are already constraints with buses and car riders getting to school on time as it currently is, given the limited access roads into the school. In addition, there's already limited parking for visitors during school day and school functions, which would further be exacerbated by the redistricting. This means potentially more taxpayer money would be needed to accommodate an unnecessary influx of students. I feel it's irresponsible of our school leaders to proceed with a redistricting decision that disregards the well-being and overwhelming consensus of its constituents, and I strongly urge you to consider the negative impact on both schools and the supporting communities that this will cause. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hello, my name is Jen Denny, and I have 3 boys at Broadneck Elementary, a kindergartner, a second grader, and a 4th grader. So this looks good on paper, right? Why didn't anyone from the parent committee vote for it? It got 0 votes. The reason why? It moves 25% of our African American population at Broadneck Elementary away from the school, greatly changing the diversity culture at the school. We had a parent that was on the committee that became so upset at the notion of this. And she was an African American. She thought, my children are going to go to school and not see other kids like themselves. And what type of culture is that for them to be raised in? So this was the reason that this was not even addressed later on in all of the committee meetings. It was not even an option, really, which is why it got 0 votes. So this is something that really affects all of our students. One of the reasons why we all love Broadneck Elementary is because of its culture. We love the community. We love although not as diverse as some of the other schools, we love the fabric that we have there. And to be able to really change that by moving 69 students, but of that, which is 7 to 8% of the school population, we're changing the minority population by 25% or more. That's a big deal. So for all of our students, I feel like that's something we need to address here. And we need to look at, while it looks good on paper, it was not an option that was recommended to the superintendent. It was something that, while it seemed not contiguous and why certain areas were left out of the recommendations or the different options, that's why. And it was addressed in the very first meeting that we had as parents. So I hope that you really consider all of the numbers, not just the ones that look at straight number of students. We look at the demographics. We look at how it's really going to affect our culture at either school and how it's going to affect the entire community. I want my students to be tolerant of every single race, religion, diverse scenario that could happen. And I want for my kids to be able to know that as a community, we're able to get up and we're able to fight for each other to stay within our own school district as we are. Please vote against the redistricting.
Jen, I just have a question. You said that absolutely nobody voted on the superintendent's recommendation, option B, but our report says that option B was approved unanimously by the committee as a viable 4th option.
Well, so this is one of the issues that we have with some of the lettering of it. It says that Dr. Arlotto's recommendation B was option B here. It was voted unanimously against using option B as the committee voted it. 0-4.
Yeah, our report says the opposite.
Okay, I think that we need to make sure that the semantics in your report are correct.
Right, the other C and D are 2-2. Okay, yeah.
No one voted for this option to be the option that was presented to Dr. Arlotto.
But then it could be brought forward as a last and final option if it had to be.
Of course. So what they were recommended by the school system was to present several options and then to vote upon them as those that would be moved forward to the committee, or I'm sorry, to the superintendent. And when they voted, none of the parent committee members voted for this option.
Okay, so really it should say this option, designated option B, was rejected unanimously.
Correct.
By the committee as a viable fourth
Correct. And that's a huge distinction.
Yeah.
Huge distinction. This is not supported by the parent committee nor any of the constituents that attended all of those meetings, which is why it's so upsetting and why we are all so emotional up here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ben Frazier. I live in Deep Creek Village, and I have a daughter at Broadneck Elementary School. I just want to take a quick minute to emphasize the importance of the committee's recommendation to do nothing. The committee was made up of members of the community that have kids at Broadneck Elementary School, and also you've heard from a lot of the members of the community here that have kids at Broadneck Elementary School that are experiencing this, quote, overpopulation, and it just how the committee's recommendation stated essentially that we're happy with the way things are. And I just want to emphasize that the current arrangement works for the people that are affected by it, such that all of the other options are really solutions to a problem that doesn't exist. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Melissa Christian. I am a resident at Quaker Ridge. I have a kindergartner. The one thing I will say, Maria, you are absolutely correct. Belle Reve is a community in its own, and I apologize that I'm emotional. Our children all play together, whether they live in Deep Creek, whether they live at the Bluffs, Quaker Ridge, or any of the other communities. Everybody knows the yellow and orange park. It's where we all come together. And, you know, my earlier friend's point here about diversity, Belle Reve as a loop in its own is incredibly diverse. And her point was that it was emotional as we were sitting through those committee meetings for everybody. Option B would send 25% of the African American population to Cape St. Clair from Broadneck. The entire Belle Reve loop makes up half of the African American population at Broadneck. Not only that, we have a relatively statistically large size of an Asian population as well. It's a diverse neighborhood to be pulling apart. We are a community and we need to be together and we want to stay at Broadneck. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jody Pratt, and I'm a mother of 2 children currently attending Broadneck Elementary. I also live in Deep Creek Village, along with most of my friends here. Along with the other members of our community, I am extremely concerned about the recommendation to redistrict us from Broadneck to Cape St. Clair. I've crossed out pretty much everything I wrote on here because it's been said over and over again. You're even hearing from the teacher. It's just stressful. I'm sorry. To the teachers that are in support of redistricting or anyone else that is in support of this, we understand that your classrooms are large, but make no mistake, if these 69 children move and BES is once again considered open, another developer will come in and the numbers will go right back up to where they are, if not higher. You're going to be losing 1 to 2 children from your classrooms, and that's it. These children are losing a lot more than that. They're already under enough stress in their lives. Why are we adding to that? I agree with the committee's top choice of immediately not doing anything. Let's spend the next few years researching this area as a whole instead of picking 2 schools and just looking at the numbers on a spreadsheet. It isn't fair that these 69 children are the ones paying the price for the overdevelopment in this area. So I am just recommending that you vote against the redistricting. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ashley. I am representing the Bay Hill Townhouse Bluff community, the orange and yellow playground. I stand here with all of my fellow people in the community. I am raising two children, a current first grader and an incoming kindergartner. We feel fortunate to be able to live in the Broadneck School District. And even though we feel fortunate, like many, we've worked hard for it. We've made the choice to pay the higher cost. We've even chose to live in a smaller home so our daughters can receive the Broadneck School District education. Once again, I do appreciate the opportunity. I don't discount that this is an easy decision for you to make, and our heartfelt testimonies, I'm sure, just make it all that more harder. But again, hearing these stories, I think, helps us not to make a decision blindly. So again, thank you. Our daughter is excelling at Broadneck, but she didn't start that way. Vera has been working with your special education team at Broadneck since day one in kindergarten. Vera is an intelligent and she is a creative child, but just like many of us, things just don't always click right away. And she needs to find the tools and the resources, but most importantly, the confidence that she knows that she can do it, even if she's wrong. The confidence that has been built in Vera is a direct result of your special education team at Broadneck and from the IEP that we created together with your team. My husband and I are involved. We are immersed. We're a solid unit, all working for that little girl. It is my fear that pulling a child like Vera from her team and starting her over again in her new and unknown environment will start to diminish that confidence that is taking time to set in place. Of course, where I'm here today to defend my little unit, I tell you about Vera and our situation because we're not alone. IEP or not, the foundation for many of these children have been set because of your team of teachers and staff employed that have worked and cared for our children. The confidence is grounded because they trust their parents and their care providers that we'll do our part if they do theirs. If you choose to redistrict these children and they do not transition well, it will be at the cost of their well-being and a life-altering choice for many. So I ask, is the redistrict worth the struggle? Will you accomplish what needs to be done? And more importantly, was it for the right reasons? Thank you for today.
Thank you. I don't have any additional cards. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the board at this time? Okay, so let me just share some dates for everyone who's in the room.
Stacey, can I ask a question on this?
Sure.
I have a question, and this is pretty much for the board and the administration as such. The option B, which is the option by Dr. Arloto, and we have to add one bus. Is there any way we could find out the cost of basically keeping those extra, good, Alex can answer that one, keeping the, what would be the cost of adding a bus financially, the driver, the gas, everything, the liability, the insurance, compared to basically keeping the extra students over there, if there is any cost?
So again, for the record, Alex Shackno, Chief Operating Officer. As I testified earlier, under all 4 scenarios, actually, there is not any extra buses. It's bus neutral. So under Dr. Arlotto's recommendation, which is option B, one existing bus that currently services Broadneck Elementary School will be redeployed. That same bus, the same driver, one bus that currently services Broadneck Elementary School will be redeployed to service Cape St. Clair. So there is none of these 4 options anticipate having additional buses that are required to be procured and put in service.
Okay, but there would not be extra cost? There's extra mileage, and there's no extra cost?
It's incremental. The cost is really in the bus and the driver.
Okay.
So that's, as you can see in the graphics, the schools are relatively close together. So, the mileage to one side is offset by the mileage to the other. The 2 schools, and you can go to any of the maps, Ms. Sasso, and I know as the crow flies isn't a fair way to look at it, but you'll see that Broadneck Elementary and Cape St. Clair Elementary are only 2.17 miles apart from each other. So,
well, that's
of course, you have
having lived on Shore Acres, I know the condition of College Parkway.
Right.
It's really impossible at times, and the time element factor, and it's a little bit different.
So if under any option that the board would contemplate, should you contemplate an option that would require us to put a new bus into service, which again, none of the four options currently do, but if any option that you arrived at that would, you can essentially assume like $74,000 for a bus would be a good annual cost. But again, as it sits today, none of those options contemplate any fiscal impact in terms of acquiring new buses, new drivers, or establishing new routes.
Okay, then another question is, if we remained with option A or option B, okay, is there any financial difference between one of those? Is one more costly than the other?
No, this really isn't a cost.
Okay, so
a
it's
cost issue essentially.
basically a overload of school. That's all we're looking at.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mrs. Birch.
I wanted to go back to something I had mentioned earlier, and Alex, it's good that you're here because you can always verify for me if I'm correct or not. When I had been talking about the adequate public facilities question, which is, I mean, even though it's not our decision, and I know that that's not what we do, one thing that I didn't mention is that part of the law, because of federal court rulings, is that even if the school is over capacity, eventually those builders can build anyway. If we don't have capacity in our school, even if Broadneck stays at, what are they at now, 115?
Yes, ma'am.
115%. If a builder puts in a proposal, if we haven't made capacity in their school building, in 6 years they can build anyway. So there's no advantage to keeping a school overcrowded except that the kids are in an overcrowded school, because eventually a builder is going to build. They'll just wait it out.
Right, that's absolutely correct. There's essentially a public takings provision. There's only a limited amount of time that a public entity can disenfranchise a landowner from making beneficial use of his and her land. There's been, as you said, numerous court cases here in Anne Arundel County when the adequate public facilities ordinance was written and reauthorized yet again a number of years after that. A significant amount of research was put into the defensibility of what's called the waiting period or the hold period. And 6 years seems to be about a reasonable zone that a public entity such as the Anne Arundel County government could defend. Beyond that, you really begin stretching the limits of the Constitution and you're subject to an overturn. So here in Anne Arundel County, when an applicant makes a permit application for a subdivision and development to create a new development from land that's previously undeveloped, there is an adequate public facilities test that's undertaken at that time. I earlier expressed the binary nature of the APFO law. If a school is open, the applicant is allowed to continue through the remaining building permit stages of his or her application. If a school is closed by the adequate public facilities ordinance chart that is adopted annually by the county council, that applicant is put on a school wait list. And it's a first come, first served school wait list. At any time through the next 6 years, if capacity becomes available, given the binary nature of this law, they are essentially immediately released to go to the remaining stages of their building permit. But even if not, so at the end of year 6, which is the scenario you just painted, Ms. Burge, at the end of year 6, if Broadneck Elementary School was still at 115 or 110 or 120, it doesn't matter. But at the end of year 6, irrespective of whether there is capacity or is not, the applicant is automatically able to go forward and continue through the building permit and subdivision process. And that's as codified in the law that sits before us today.
So regardless of what we do as our decision, it's not going to prevent more building on the Broadneck Peninsula.
Correct. I think the phrase that's often used and maybe is most appropriate to the APFO law is it's a circuit breaker that temporarily slows down development to allow the public to catch up. So theoretically, you will temporarily halt the developer until such time that a CIP project can occur to build the additional capacity onto that school. Broadneck's already had additions put onto it
Right.
In 2010 and 2012. But if not, again, at the end of that 6-year wait period, they're automatically allowed to go forward anyway.
That's another question. It was brought up that perhaps an addition could be put on again. What is the likelihood that, you know, regardless of our current plans, I'm not even going there, that state money would be given to an additional addition for Broadneck, given the space that's available at the adjacent elementary school?
Sure. So the addition that was put on, the last material addition was put on to Broadneck, was put on to accommodate the implementation of full-day kindergarten, which was a state-mandated program, and the state thus gave a fairly generous or liberal disposition to projects that facilitated full-day K.
Okay.
What we have before us is markedly different. What we have before us is a capacity issue.
Okay.
So a building addition to address capacity to get approval from the state, you essentially have to demonstrate that you do not have the ability to resolve that overcapacity condition at a lower level. And specifically, what they do look at is what they call the adjoining school test. So if you have a school A, this is a hypothetical construct, if you have school A that's in the middle and it's over capacity, but you have school B and school C that are to the left and the right or north and the south of it that have capacity, if you have the ability to redistrict, so mathematically, if you can redistrict those students into school B and C, thus resolving the overcapacity condition at school A, you will essentially be ineligible for state funding. And in a county such as Anne Arundel, where we are already under some rather challenging fiscal constraints, the ability to go forward on capital projects without the support of state funding is quite challenging at the least, and could be almost impossible in reality.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your help with those questions.
Yes,
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you again, Madam President. I just, it wasn't for Mr. Shagnovich necessarily, but just to say thank you to everyone who came. I know daytime meetings are tough for most people. I appreciate all of the testimony. There was one person in particular, and I didn't catch the full name. I believe it was Kim. Gave a lot of statistics and ran out of time. And I think her final words were, "I have more." I just wanted to know if we can get a copy of what you were sharing. At least I would, love having that as part of the evaluation process.
Could you email it to us?
If you could email it, or I'll give you my card. Thank you.
Okay, so now I think I can share the dates for everybody who's here today. We've now received the superintendent's recommendations, so we have the committee recommending option A, we have the superintendent recommending option B. The board has until January 18th at our daytime meeting to decide which options we're going to take to public hearing. So we could take option A, we could take option B, we could throw in C and D, or any one of these board members could create option E, F, and G. That will all take place on January 18th. Then on Tuesday, February 21st at Cape St. Clair Elementary School from 7 to 9 p.m. there'll be a community briefing. So that way anyone in the community that's not really been that involved in the process, they can look at the maps and the demographics and all of that for the options that the board is taking forward. Then on Tuesday, March 7th at Broadneck High School at 6 p.m., we all will be there to hear from the public. And that is the opportunity for the public to bring testimony to us about the options that were put forth on January 18th. And then the last date is that on Wednesday, April 19th, the board will vote on redistricting. And we do not take public testimony typically at that time because we will have had the public testimony on Tuesday, March 7th. So Tuesday, March 7th is the key date for your calendars, as well as the community briefing on Tuesday, February 21st. Mr. Granum.
President Korbelak, I just have a quick question about process to clarify. Is another option that you did not address potentially that a majority of the board decides right then and there on January 18th not to put forward any options for redistricting and shut it down?
Yes.
Thank you.
which is essentially option A from the committee.
But we wouldn't have to go forward with further public hearings on
Right,
it,
there
'cause-
wouldn't be anything to,
Right.
to take. All right, thank you all. Item 4.06 is also an information item, the Monarch Academy Annapolis Public Contract School and Redistricting Update. And we have a presentation.
For the record, I'm Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Kathy Lane, Executive Director of Alternative Education.
Pat Crane, Senior Manager of Alternative Programs.
And we're here to present item 4.06, which is an information item regarding an update on the Monarch Annapolis Public Contract School as well as the redistricting process. As you can see in the slide above, and we'll sort of tag team the presentation, we recently received very good news as the superintendent briefed the board through collaborative efforts with the school system, county government, et cetera. The school and the state government, the city finally released a permit for the Monarch School, which is be located at the former Capitol Gazette building just off Gibraltar. We anticipate that the program will open in the fall of 2007. For those students in the 17, I'm sorry, for those in Annapolis cluster. I'd like to allow Mr. Crane and Ms. Lane to speak about some of the educational and programmatic activities that we anticipate being offered at that facility.
Okay, so as we've discussed before, so the school is going to be International Baccalaureate, PYP, with arts integration. And that is a perfect segue to both Bates Middle School and Annapolis Middle School. Annapolis Middle School currently has an MYP program, and Bates has a PVA program. So we think that regardless of whichever school these students matriculate to, they will have perfect segue into either one of those two programs. That's a program that we got together and decided upon both internally and with external stakeholders, and we feel that right now that's going to be most beneficial to the students attending that school. So,
and as you know, the Children's Guild has been a tremendous partner with Anne Arundel County Public Schools and already operates the two schools up in Glen Burnie and up in the Laurel area. So there's a tremendous amount of partnership with programmatic offerings and alignment with the educational program that already exists here. So we see both the IB PYP program as well as the arts integration elements going relatively smoothly. So the school's contemplated to open from to serve K through 5th grade to help, and for the purpose essentially to help ease overcrowding at the Annapolis area. So the catchment area that we're talking about are those youngsters that either are in or are eligible to attend the 9 elementary schools that currently articulate up through Annapolis Middle and Bates and ultimately to Annapolis High School. It's anticipated that the school will open with approximately 530 students when it opens this upcoming fall. As you may have heard, the lottery process just opened on December 1st, and it's contemplated to run through February of 2017. So December 1st, 2016 through February 1st, 2017. And I'd like to allow Mr. Crane and Ms. Lane to address the specifics of the lottery.
Yes, so again, as Mr. Shaknovich stated, we did open enrollment on December 1st, and that will run through February 1st. Just like our charter schools and our other contract school, Monarch Global, there will be a lottery held if more students apply than our seats. If history repeats itself with our other charter and contract schools, there will be a number of students that apply, and we do expect that will result in a lottery. So one factor that we did figure in for this particular lottery, unlike our other charter and contract schools, is there is a weighting involved. Again, part of the reason that we did put this school into, part of the reason that we did weight this particular lottery is to alleviate the overcrowding at 3 particular schools: Germantown, Hillsmere, and Tyler Heights. Some specifics about that weighting is if you're a current student at Germantown, Hillsmere, or Tyler Heights, you would get a weighting factor of 2. If you're a student at any one of our other elementary schools, or you're from outside one of our public schools in that area, you'd get a weighting factor of 1. And again, the emphasis there is that we really need to alleviate the overcrowding of those 3 schools, and we believe the weighting factor is a way to do that.
So it's a tremendous opportunity because not only does it create an additional school of choice here, and we've been on a steady campaign to create a palette, a menu of educational opportunities for our youngsters, but also now to address some of the overcrowding issues. As you know, we've also been looking at addressing some of the overcrowding issues in Annapolis through another means, and that is through redistricting, something that should be familiar with you from this morning. So just last Tuesday, we held our first organizational meeting with the Annapolis Redistricting Committee. There's 36 citizens on that committee, and certainly a tremendous group of Anne Arundel County public school staff that are helping support that committee. At the first meeting, they were presented with a tremendous amount of data, maps, statistics, etc., and they picked the chair and the recording secretary of that group. Just last night at Georgetown East Elementary School, we had our very first meeting of the committee now that they were past that organizational evening. It's a very engaged committee. In addition to the information that we provided them day 1, which was last Tuesday at Rolling Knolls, they asked for a large volume of additional data, statistics, etc., which was provided to them as well. We've created essentially an online portal because there's so many documents that to conserve resources and printing, we're utilizing electronic means as much as possible. The committee is scheduled currently is scheduled to run through the 10th of January, typically having meetings on Tuesday evenings, and they'll rotate in different schools. The times and dates of those have all been announced. Obviously, they'll take a pause for the winter Christmas break, but it is anticipated that hopefully on or about the 10th of January, they'll be coalescing around a group of recommendations that they would bring to the superintendent. It's not a hard and fast date. If they finish sooner, they can certainly wrap up earlier. If they feel that they need additional time, they can extend that meeting date as well. Also, as I indicated, there's 36 members of the committee in its totality, and with any committee of that size, sometimes it's more efficient to work in a subcommittee or in a task force. So that is something that they contemplated, and they will, in fact, be moving in a direction that they'll be breaking it down into smaller chunks simply so they can be more efficient and digest more of the data. And one of the important pieces of data that they obviously are going to need is they're going to need some information on the Monarch School that we're referencing here today. As Mr. Crane indicated, enrollment is open. It opened on December 1st, and so it's a real-time data snapshot. We've committed that we will be providing to the redistricting panel each and every Tuesday that they meet. We'll take a snapshot as late in the day as we can and provide them some statistics for them to use, and then again, we'll update them each and every Tuesday. But the information that was provided yesterday, so as late as 4 p.m. on the 6th, right today, the enrollment window had only been open for 6 days, already 129 applicants had applied in all grade levels. So 129 applicants total, and I'll run through this quickly. We can certainly get you a paper copy, but there's a very even distribution in a way. So we've had, for example, 35 kindergarten, 23 first graders, 24 second graders, 14 third graders, 21 fourth graders, and 12 fifth graders as of that time. The breakdown by schools also is encouraging. So again, I'll run through this quickly, and a paper copy can certainly follow. But out of Annapolis Elementary School's current catchment area, 12 students, 9 from Eastport, 22 from Georgetown East, 16 from Germantown, 20 from Hillsmere, 28 from Mills Parole, 10 from Rolling Knolls, 14 from Tyler Heights, 0 from West Annapolis. But the most encouraging piece, and I'll turn this over to Ms. Lane and Mr. Crane in a second, is this has all been absent marketing. And we have had a tremendous partnership with the Children's Guild, and we know that they have always been successful in marketing the schools and helping facilitate families in enrolling. So it would be beneficial for the board to hear a little bit about that outreach and marketing and enrollment campaign that the Children's Guild will partner with the school district on.
So Sue Myers, as you're aware, has been appointed as the principal of the school, and she's very familiar with the Annapolis cluster, having been a principal there for over a decade. And so she's been spending this entire fall while waiting for the permits, making lots of contacts with community stakeholders, primarily at the community leadership level, including nonprofits, religious leaders, politicians, community advocates, in both the African American and Latino communities, and they've been very embracing of the notion and appreciative of an opportunity for a school of choice of this nature coming to their community. She's presented at all the PTA meetings in the Annapolis cluster, several times at the Annapolis Education Commission. She's presented at the Annapolis City Council, distributed flyers through all the Annapolis newsletters, handed out flyers to local businesses and apartment complexes. There's been mailers to all pre-K to 4 students enrolled in our schools. There's been advertisement in both English and Hispanic magazines and such, and presented at the Noche Latino night at Mills Parole. Now that the enrollment is open, she's prepared to host parent information nights, specifically at Tyler Heights, Mills Parole, and Germantown, in partnership with our bilingual facilitators, who will be a tremendous resource to reaching the Latino community, which she was very much embracing, making sure they're well represented in the school. And there's also scheduled meet and greets at our public and affordable housing communities that the leadership has arranged for her and has passed out flyers for her about those meet and greets. So as you can see, Ms. Myers has been very active in the community and made tremendous contacts and is receiving nothing but positive and warm support from all the leaders in the area.
And we were also made aware that the Children's Guild will be holding an open house at their 2 existing facilities in Laurel and in Glen Burnie as well, so that prospective students and their families can walk through and take a look at those facilities. As I indicated earlier, we're sort of on parallel paths. The committee is working hard to anticipate bringing a recommendation to Dr. Arlotto in January. As you recall, as part of the charge for redistricting, the board indicated that they would set aside the element of the regulation that speaks to the timeline. So the superintendent is expected to have a deliverable from the committee around the end of January, such that he'll be able to bring a product to the board for their consideration around that February timeline. We'll follow the same process as we are from that point on, essentially with the Broadneck Cape. So there'll be a presentation for information purposes. The board will have some time to consider and review the matter. You will then be asked which, if any, recommendations to either of the superintendent to either accept in whole, accept in part, reject entirely, or craft your own plans. You can also move forward other plans if there's more than one from the committee, et cetera. We will be obligated to hold a public briefing. We'll be obligated to hold a public hearing on the matter as well. And those dates, I understand, are already being worked on. But the date that cannot move is the date that's prescribed in state law, and that, once again, is April 30th. So for any redistricting action to be able to be implemented and effective the following school year, state law mandates that that vote conclude no later than April 30th of the year before. So that is a hard and fast date as we look at some of those calendaring items. And with that, I believe we're prepared to answer any questions the board might have.
Mr. Gilliland?
Thank you, and thank you for this presentation. It's very informative, and I appreciate all the comments today that you've made. And I'm excited about the relief that the school is going to provide for overcrowding in the Annapolis area, but also I would say, and probably more importantly, just excited about the opportunities that students are going to have there. I've been to the school in its early construction stage one night with Mr. Sasso, and I was just so impressed by what I saw, and then certainly, you know, I'm just impressed by the dialogue with the Children's Guild. My one question is specific to the lottery. And that's, again, assuming applications exceed enrollment. I don't know if we're trending that way, that it will or not at this point. But is there preference, and I see factor 2, factor 1, and so forth, but is there preference for siblings as well? So if you know, the 5th grader is enrolled, does the 2nd grader brother get preference in the lottery?
Yeah, so right now, currently, what our sibling policy is with our charter and other contract school is that there is a sibling preference. So when a family goes in to sign up for enrollment, they have an option of choosing whether or not they want to tie their siblings together or they want them to apply separately. So if they tie them together, what that means is if one gets in, the other one will also get in. Some parents that might maybe have 5 students might decide to enroll them separately, and so the greater the odds would be that at least one would get in. But they do have that option. So, you know, ultimately, if they choose a sibling preference, then those students will be together.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Birch.
My question's actually about the open houses that you mentioned. Is there going to be any sort of transportation for folks that may not have transportation from the Annapolis area? Because I know that, you know, getting up to Ordnance Road or out there in Laurel may not be easy for all of the Annapolis parents who might wish to see the other schools. I don't know if that's something that could be looked into.
I don't know that I have an answer today for that. The Children's Guild is taking the lead on that. We certainly have spoken to them about that. That question has been raised, but I can get some clarification for you certainly.
If you could let me know, because
sure.
I think that would be something to consider. I mean, it's certainly something that I think people should sign up for ahead of time. I don't think it should be just open, but if people were interested in getting transportation, I would hope that was something that they could be helped with.
If the Children's Guild did not receive 530 applications, would we then open the seats up to other clusters?
Yes, how the contract is written is that if they didn't meet their number by a targeted date, that they would come back to this board and it would be decided how that expansion would roll out. So we wanted to kind of leave some room for that, but one of the options would be, you know, you kind of just move out contiguously to the next adjacent, most overcrowded school in the area.
With that said, Ms. Quarterblack, as you're well aware, that the schools that they are currently running, as well as the Chesapeake Science Point, et cetera, they have all been very successful in attracting the number of students that their contract allows. So at this point in time, we remain confident that the Guild will once again be able to arrive at their contractual number.
And if by February 1, we kind of set that timeline because there's a lot of other milestones that will need to be met, but we could leave the application window open so families from the Annapolis cluster could continue to apply after the February 1st deadline.
Okay, thanks. Mrs. Hummer.
In the light of the timeline we've discussed about Monarch, I would like to make a motion that the board adjust the date for the superintendent's recommendation on redistricting of the Annapolis Peninsula and move the date for that report from February 1st to February 15th. Since the lottery closes February 1st, that will give the redistricting committee time to get those final numbers in, and then that can be presented to us at the February 15th meeting.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Okay, so the superintendent's recommendation would be on the 15th of February. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, I will, for the benefit of people watching, I'll give the dates that we have then for the Annapolis cluster redistricting meetings. If the superintendent presents his option recommendation on February 15th, much like today with Cape St. Clair and Broadneck, then the board would vote which option to take or options to take to public hearing on the first meeting in March, which is actually March 1st. Then we would go ahead and have the community briefing with the community right here in this building, Tuesday, March 14th from 7 to 9 p.m. And then the public hearing before the board would be Monday, April 3rd at Annapolis High School at 6 p.m. And then we would be voting on both the Broadneck, Cape St. Clair, and Annapolis redistricting on Wednesday, April 19th. All right, we will go on to item 4.07, which is filling of vacancies on the executive committee of the countywide citizen advisory committee. And this is an action item. Mrs. Hummer.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the superintendent's recommendations. No, what am I saying the wrong thing? No. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Okay, then. That we accept the nominations. Apologies. The nominations of Jacqueline Langworthy Purdue for the Annapolis Cluster Elementary Schools representative. Arundel, I'm sorry, I'm not reading correctly. Benjamin Burke for the Chesapeake Elementary Schools representative. I make a motion that we approve to appoint those two to the vacancies.
All those in favor? All right, so we have two new members of the CAC. Then item 5.01 is a review item, award of contracts. Do we have any board questions or comments? I actually had a couple questions. The graduation ceremony venue contract just made me think about the fact that up by Arundel Mills we were expecting a new venue. Do we have any updates on when that might be constructed so that we could have graduations in Anne Arundel County again?
Sure. For the record, Alex Scheckner, the Chief Operating Officer. As you can see, that this contract for graduation venues goes through November of 17, so we'll facilitate this upcoming spring. They have started construction out there. It obviously depends on the timeline. It was anticipated that we could have graduations there as early as May, June of 2018, and if not, it will be the May, June 2019 cycle. They're at the very early stages of construction. However, they've gotten some, but not all of their permits, et cetera, there, but sufficient to begin construction. So there's a lot of logistics. It's a very big job site. That being said, they're progressing very aggressively. They have some competition that just opened up down the road from them, and they're definitely motivated to get their facility constructed and operational as soon as possible. And we would clearly be one of the beneficiaries of their aggressive schedule.
Thanks for that. And just out of curiosity, is award number 9 school buses anything to do with our Start School Later school bus purchase?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
So we have here in the state of Maryland, there is a law that if you're any of the western counties, you cannot have a bus that's in service for more than 12 years. That's the maximum length of time that a public school, that a bus can be utilized on the western shore to transport public school students. So we have a number of buses that will be in their 13th year essentially next year, and we will not be able to utilize them, so we have to replace them with new buses.
Thank you. So that item is done, and then the last item are 2 consent items. 6.01 air monitoring, project management, and project design services, and 6.02 snow removal services, parking lots. Do I have a motion to bundle these two and move them from information to action?
Second. So moved.
All those in favor? Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the Board of Education award contracts as listed on today's agenda is 6.01 and 6.02.
All those in favor? Motion passes 9-0-0. Just have a couple of announcements. The next Board Policy Committee meeting is Wednesday, December 14th at 1 p.m. The next Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, December 21st at 10 a.m. And the next Board Budget Committee meeting is Wednesday, December 21st, 1 hour after the public meeting adjourns. Mrs. Hummer.
I make a motion to close, to go into closed session to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
There was a second? All right, you're seconding. All those in favor? All right, we're now in closed session. This part of the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.